everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thank you for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Tuesday. I hope your guys' week is off to a great start. I'm back at it with another video, and we are actually going to be previewing Neptune entering into the sign of Aries. If you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, make sure you give me a thumbs up and like this video. Consider subscribing to the channel, and if you're already subscribed, please just look down below and make sure that your bell button is clicked so you're alerted as to when I have new videos. I'm here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday trying to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. Equally, give me some comments. I'd love to hear some feedback from you guys. We are already feeling some of the effects of these energies. Both Neptune is kind of inching closer and closer to that 0 degrees Aries point. Saturn will be there also very soon in May. So we're already kind of in it. It's picking up the energy of Aries now, but give me some feedback. Let me know what you guys think about this transit and how you are starting to see it in your own life. I'd love to hear from you guys. Thank you so much for your comments, your likes, your shares. Any interaction with the channel really helps the channel grow. Makes it possible for me to keep being a full-time content creator. So thank you so much. Now, just a heads up, we do cover this topic in the March 2025 horoscope. So if you haven't seen them, I talk all about the retrogrades, the eclipses, and Neptune changing signs. So you can find some information there as well if you haven't seen that video. Now, over the next 2 weeks or so, I'm going to be making content that's more about the future. And I know we talk a lot about the future with astrology, but we've got a lot of planets that are going to be changing signs in 2025. So throughout the next 2 weeks, I'm going to be doing a lot of previewing videos. We're going to start first with Neptune. We're also going to be previewing Saturn in Aries, as well as Uranus in Gemini and Jupiter in Cancer. So you guys have lots to look forward to. And I don't know about you, but I want to talk about where we're going, not where we've been. We want to really get familiar with that energy because that is the energy of Aries. So much, action in the area of Aries in our chart. Obviously, I could make one long video, but it would probably take 12 hours for you guys. So I'm breaking down all of these particular Aries transits separately. But if you want more information about the eclipses in Aries, we've had a few of them over the last several years. I also put out a Mercury. We'll be putting out a Mercury in Aries video soon, and there's already a Venus in Aries video. So lots of information out there to give you guys some insights. Now today we're going to be talking about Neptune in Aries, and none of us have experienced this transit in our lifetime due to Neptune's cycle length. But we're going to be seeing at the end of March, Neptune is going to be entering into the cardinal fire sign of Aries. And this is going to be quite the transit, guys, because it's just being emphasized so much, that 0 degree Aries point. But from March 30th, 2025 through October 22nd, 2025, Neptune will be in Aries. So we're going to get a little bit of like a sneak peek with what this is going to look like over the next several years. And then as Neptune is in the sign, it's going to be between 0 and 2 degrees of Aries. So if you have anything like 28 to, I would say, of 28 of Pisces to 29 Pisces, or anything from 0 to about 4 degrees of Aries, you are going to be in direct line of fire, quite literally. And you're going to see that Neptune is going to be making a transit either to Sun, Moon, Rising, personal planet, even in angle. So the late degrees of the mutable signs are really feeling this as Neptune kind of bounces in and out of Pisces. And obviously the 0 to about 4 degrees of the cardinal signs are going to be feeling this as well as we see Neptune move into Aries and then retrograde back. Now, later this year, we will then see Neptune, retrograde, and finally in 2026, we're going to see Neptune in Aries again. And it's going to be coming into conjunction with Saturn and Neptune. That's going to be taking place on February 20th, 2026. So this year is interesting, right? We're going to see Saturn and Neptune kind of go into Aries. We're going to see Uranus go into Gemini. We're going to see Jupiter go into Cancer. And they're all kind of aspecting one another. And they're going to spend a little bit of time in their given sign. I'm talking specifically about Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus. While Jupiter will stay in Cancer, we will also see Pluto stay in Aquarius. So no real changes there, especially once Jupiter moves. But today we're going to be tackling Neptune, and that's not an easy feat, all right? Because Neptune is a bit of like a nebulous energy. It's slippery, it's confusing. We don't see things so clearly. And in recent years, having had Neptune in Pisces, it's been a lot of illusions. It's been a lot of things that we can't quite see, stuff that's kind of in our subconscious, or things that we're watching, or suspicion, that kind of stuff. And also it's been about feeling like a victim. I think a lot of people have felt victimized by their circumstances of life or things that they've got kind of going on. So very different energy as we're seeing Neptune go into Aries. Now, first I want to talk about what Neptune is. In astrology, Neptune is the planet of dreams, and it deals with imagination, spirituality, as well as illusion. So that is just the theme and the lessons of this particular planet. It governs your subconscious, and it's also connected to creativity, compassion, and even collective yearning for something that's more transcendent. Now, it's often linked to things like art, music, mysticism, or even escapism. We're going to see themes revolving around mental health, also, as well as the oceans, and anything that's going to be connected to other realms, other ethers. It's connected to water, prisons, hospitals, and these are the kind of the things and the places that Neptune rules over. So we're going to think of a Neptune transit as something that kind of brings this cosmic fog, and it blurs boundaries, and sometimes it can also connect us to things that cannot be seen. Now, it rules Pisces in modern day terms. This is a modern planet, so obviously the connection between Neptune and Pisces is soft, it's kind of flowy, but its expression is going to shift depending on what sign it's in. So this month, the month of March going into April, is going to be a really, really great example of really, I think, the Neptune from Pisces into Aries energy. We're seeing retrogrades that are going to be going from Aries to Pisces. We're seeing Neptune move signs, and then Saturn's going to rule signs. So think of the next 2 months as kind of like this preparation period before Neptune actually switches. So to move from mutable water, which is soft, sensitive, romantic, but also a little crazy, to cardinal fire is going to be like whiplash. It's going to have a very, very different energy. And I think that when I think about Neptune in a nutshell, it's always about imagination and ideals, right? So that's going to be the theme. It's going to be about Neptune reflecting shared vision and fantasies that might inspire societies. This could be, utopian dreams or artistic movements or collective aspirations. And the muse behind the shifts are going to be primarily cultural. Now, Neptune is also strongly connected to religion and spirituality. So it governs like mystical trends, religious revivals, and the search for transcendence. So you can also think that in the realm of Neptune, we're going to see more shifts revolving around religious practices, spiritual practices, but also think like cults, right? Gurus and waves of faith that are going to sweep nations. And this is in the sign of Aries. It's going to be more about the individual relationship to our faith and also our beliefs. Now, we always see themes revolving around illusions as well as deception. That's a huge, Neptune theme, Pisces theme. And I think on the flip side, because Neptune rules propaganda and misinformation and the fog of confusion that can mislead the masses, Pisces, when it moves into Aries, anything where things have been blurry or not very confusing, think like media spin or collective denial, is likely going to smack us in the face, right, Aries? And we're going to become more aware of where we have lost the plot, lost ourselves, or maybe didn't see something so clearly. So it can also be like this mass awakening where people are waking up and realizing like, hey, what's been going on is an illusion, and it's like been keeping me from being able to see things clearly or being able to believe or feeling independent or inspired. Now, Neptune touches on topics like compassion and sacrifice, right? So I think that any Neptune transit is going to have some kind of tie to humanitarian impulses, charity, as well as empathy on a grand scale. But also, martyrdom is a huge theme connected to Neptune or Pisces, or victimhood, right? And when it's taken too far. Now, Neptune is also about escapism. It's all the things that we do behind closed doors, our hidden kind of secrets and habits. And I think that Neptune has a tendency to kind of oversee society's outlets for avoidance. So drugs, alcohol, entertainment, or anything that offers a way to check out from the harsh realities of life is generally connected to Neptune. We're going to see major shifts with art as well as culture. Because Neptune influences photography, film, music, and creative expressions that kind of capture the collective mood or dissolve boundaries between people. So it is going to give us major shifts revolving around what kind of movies and TV shows we're watching. I think it's also going to be very significant for when it comes to art trends. We're going to see a lot more people, I think individuals, playing more of a role in being creative and expressing themselves. Now, the one thing we want to watch out for, obviously, is disillusion, because Neptune also erodes structures, okay? So it kind of like salt water in the sea, it can kind of tear things down. So think like economic bubbles bursting, empires fading, or old ideologies that are melting away under its influence. This will be happening. I think that we're going to see this in a number of different ways, but because this is kicking off with a Mercury and a Venus retrograde in the same sign, I think that it's going to be trying to kind of erode and kind of remove Aries themes. So it can be military, it can be naval bases. This can also be connected to, I think, information. I think it's also going to be connected to like technology. I think we're going to see similar to what we had in like the .com bust. I think we're about to see something very similar where, technology, media is all about to kind of experience like some similar cycles. And I think that'll be connected to like the trade stuff, and we'll get into that, but that's what I think is going to happen. Now, Neptune and Aries, the core themes of this particular transit that we're going to be seeing this year is, we're pouring like that dreamy, mystical water into a fiery, action-oriented cup. So you're going to see lots of steam. You're going to see two elements that don't generally work well together. And for many of us, it can feel like it's this moment where something is boiling over. Aries is bold. It's independent, and it's all about the self. It's the warrior, the pioneer. It's also the spark or the initiative of something. Aries is traditionally associated with Mars. So there is going to be this theme of dreams in action. And I think that with Neptune and Aries, it's kind of blending this etheric energy with a fiery drive, and it's creating this very unique tension that is going to give us all some kind of potential. Now, what do I think this means for us? I think this means that there is going to be massive spiritual awakening, and it's going to be through action. Unlike where in recent years we have felt asleep or incapable or stuck or afraid to make changes or kind of face these illusions, now there is going to be some kind of collective crisis that's going to take place that's going to push all of us to kind of leap into action. So I'm anticipating people are going to feel a surge of inspiration to pursue their dreams with courage. I also think that this is almost like a call to fight for our ideals as well as our beliefs. Now, there will be this theme of idealism from Neptune meeting impulsivity because it's in Aries. So there's this push to act on visions or fantasies. But we know with Aries energy, sometimes it can lead to us like leaping before we actually look. And there can be, throughout the retrogrades happening in March, this feeling of, oh, I made a move too quickly. Now what do I do, right? Or like, now I don't know where to go. I don't know how to start or how to begin. Aries energy is known for initiating things, but it's not known for finishing them. So some of us might feel like we're leaping into, deep water or uncharted territory, and we don't know where we're going. We just know we have to get going, and we're like, is this going to work out? Am I on my own? Which is going to lead, I think, a lot of us to learning to slow down and think about things before we execute any particular actions. I think this is also about redefining our identity, because Aries is the sign of I am. So, Neptune here is going to be dissolving old ideas of self. And I also feel like this is going to be really sparking a quest for a higher, much more inspired type of identity. If you think about Aries, it's all about the hero's journey. So a lot of us are going to be kind of going on these new epic journeys in the area of Aries in our chart, with support from a solar eclipse, 2 retrogrades, Saturn as well. So there is this kind of theme 2025 into 2026 that's like, if I can dream it, I can make it happen. But we're not just going to sit around and just daydream. We actually have to put things into action. So I think that this is going to lead to collective passion. I feel like on a global scale, this could really ignite movements driven by shared ideas, but with some heat, right? Aries is fire. So it might burn fast and it might be very bright. And I think we're going to see a lot of individuals that are going to just be like incredibly inspired or feeling like they are on their own. It depends on how it's aspecting your chart. I am looking forward to the creative bursts. I think that there could be a global surge in art and innovation. However, it's going to have a little bit of like an aggressive trailblazing kind of edge to it in this sign. Maybe breakthroughs in immersive tech and kind of like avant-garde, you know, art expression, I think is to be expected. What we want to watch out for though is because Aries is a sign associated with war, there is going to be conflict. You don't have an Aries, you know, transit without some kind of conflict. It does come up one way or another. And I think in this case, it's diluted conflict. It could be that there's wars or disputes that are fueled by misplaced ideas or propaganda, wherein the why gets lost, you know, when Aries kind of rushes to act. So what kind of wars? Water wars, right? Neptune and Aries. War that could be, you know, fought in, you know, hostile, you know, kind of angry places. We might also see certain countries moving to kind of like take or monopolize on, you know, land, and fighting over land or fighting over resources. We could also see that the way that warfare is playing out is completely different. I think that where it's been in Pisces, it's gone over a lot of people's heads. Going into Aries, this is going to be how acts of war or some kind of conflict is actually impacting individuals and making them feel isolated, Neptune, or making them feel like they need to leave their country. So we're going to see more people who are going to be seeking refugee status in certain places. I also feel like it's going to be about blending that energy of Aries, which is to kind of take charge and to lead, with that kind of sensitive, spiritual, compassionate energy of Neptune, where maybe we're not seeing these angry, crazy tyrants out in the world. We're seeing leaders that are strong, confident, they're patient, they're considerate, and they also think about what's going to be best for the masses rather than just kind of being this like crazy king. In the past, in past transits, when we had Neptune and Aries the last time, this was roughly from 1861 to 1875. So we, you know, as an astrologer, it's not just my job to talk about what's going on in the planets in the future or what's happening right now. I have a moral obligation, I feel like, to go back and look at the history and see what has happened in previous transits and study those times to have a better understanding of what might be kind of playing out this time. So it's been a while since we've seen this transit. And if we look back for clues, you know, though astrology is not going to exactly repeat, it's going to give us the kind of flavor of some of the events that we might be expecting. So when we think about the 1860s to, let's say, the 1880s, during this particular era, you know, we had the American Civil War, right? And so this was like a fight for ideals, and there was lots of confusion, and also there was lots of sacrifice. We also saw the rise of spiritualism. That was a huge theme that shifted. Those of you guys who are familiar with like the Fox sisters and the beginning of the Mysterious Knox, and then this whole spiritualist movement where we saw massive churches and people kind of blending religion with spirituality and this belief in the other side, and mediumship and all of these other forms of spirit communication was then born. So I find that very interesting, pioneering when it comes to like spirituality. Now, we also saw that there was bold innovations like the Transcontinental Railroad, which was basically an insane amount of man labor. It was connecting us from one place to the next and taking us to places and even remote places that some people had never been. So I think that's kind of cool. And all of these events, they kind of reflect Aries' kind of pioneering spirit, and obviously that mix with Neptune's kind of dreamy, chaotic influence. So I do think that history shows us that Neptune and Aries can be bold, and it can be about moving us to make our dreams a reality. But we're going to find for many of us, it's going to come at a cost. It means we're going to have to fight for it. It means that we're going to have to defend something. It means that we're going to have to initiate and do something new that we've never dreamed we would ever do before. So in the past, when I looked at this particular period, you know, from 1861 to 75, not only did we see the Civil War, as many of you guys know, the U.S. kind of tore itself apart. One of the biggest themes, I think, connected that we've learned about as Americans has been that connection to slavery and the states. But there were so many other things that kind of went into the Civil War. And it actually started with the Confederate attack on Fort Sumter in April of '61. And then obviously we all know how it ended. It ended with Lee's surrender in 1865. But Unfortunately, there was an amazing, not amazing, it's like a shocking amount of people died. I mean, over 600,000 people died giving their life to reshape the nation. And obviously, we went on to kind of see, we had the assassination of Lincoln, we saw the abolishment of slavery, but there was deep scars within the nation. There was definitely battle wounds that were very visible. As many of you guys know, if you've watched Civil War movies, you know anything about the history, brutal. I mean, like in the field, people having, body parts amputated. And we saw a huge forward movement with development of medicine and like treatment. But a lot of people who did manage to make it through that war, did not come out of it unscathed. Now, we saw also the Taiping Rebellion during this time. It was kind of happening a little bit earlier, but from 1850 to 1864 in China, there was a massive civil war that peaked during these years, and it killed millions of people. I mean, numbers range from anywhere from 20 to 30 million people. It was a quasi-Christian movement, and it was kind of led by a rebellion, and the current dynasty, I think was feeling challenged by that, because there was a sense of like blending idealism with chaos. And so it was like very Neptunian. We saw the Second Italian War of Independence that took place. The tail end saw Italy unify. And also there was campaigns pushing for foreign powers like Austria. And I think that was like a very fiery kind of Aries drive for identity. We had the Franco-Prussian War in 1870 to 1871, where France and Prussia clashed, and this led to like a quick victory for Prussia, and it ended Napoleon's rule, and this ended up birthing the German Empire. So that obviously, continued to kind of like develop what would be Europe today. And we also saw the Paraguayan War of 1864 to 1870. And this was also called the War of the Triple Alliance. And this is where Paraguay fought Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay. And it was devastating. Actually, Paraguay lost up to 70% of its male population, and it was brutal. And obviously, there was lots of conflict that was conflicting, the conflicting beliefs and ideas, and that kind of led to the war. What else happened? Well, we saw the unification of Italy. We saw the abolition of serfdom in Russia. And this is where it basically freed millions of people who were serfs. And it was a radical shift in a feudal society where it was idealistic but messy. And so reform with unintended chaos kind of came about. Obviously, we know that in America in the 1860s, we saw the Confederate States formed. And so obviously, 7 southern U.S. states seceded, electing Jefferson Davis as president. And it was a very bold, defiant move that actually ended up sparking the war, as we had that division within the United States. The German Empire was established, like I said. We saw the Paris Commune in 1871. And this was post-war France. They saw a brief radical kind of socialist uprising in Paris, and it clashed violently with the dreams between, what could be possible versus reality. And then we saw the end of Reconstruction in the U.S. in 1875. And this is where federal troops led the South under the disputed 1876 election, making it a retreat from racial equality efforts. Now, for economic developments, there were a handful of things that definitely happened, although Aries is not necessarily a sign that's associated with money per se, but this might be a little bit more prominent now, as we're going to be having both a Mercury business and Venus money retrograde during this particular ingress period. Now, in the 1860s, we saw a cotton famine here in the United States, and basically we had to see mills shut down because of unemployment, and there was global ripples that kind of happened from that lack of being able to produce cotton. We also saw the Transcontinental Railroad begin. So the U.S. started building the railroad. This was a major game changer, and it really tied the nation together, boosting trade as well as expansion. The Suez Canal opened in 1869. Am I saying that right? Suez, I think. Suez. The engineering marvel linked Europe, Asia together, and this slashed shipping times, and it was like a bold economic leap with imperial undertones. So it actually connected nations which had not been able to kind of trade very easily. We also saw the Panic of 1873. There was a final crisis that began in Vienna, and it spread globally. And this was kind of triggered by speculative bubbles that were happening with railroads and as well as real estate. And it ultimately led to a depression, exposing just how fragile the economy was globally. And also in the 1870s, we saw the gold rush. So this was Australia, Victoria Rush, and the Black Hills discovery in South Dakota drove migration and wealth. And there was just major pioneering booms with Neptunian allure where people were willing to go on their own, go to places seeking riches and hoping for a new life. Now, there's lots of health things that happened during this period as well. We saw that there was major outbreaks. There was a cholera outbreak in the 1860s, and it was a global pandemic. It hit hard. There were very notable waves in 1861 in India, 1863 in Europe, and 1865. Now, this was connected to poor sanitation, and it fueled millions of deaths. And I think that this is significant as Neptune can deal with endings and completions, sickness and isolation, but it's also connected to water. So I think about water contamination, water safety being like a theme in the future. Now, this was also a time where we saw Pasteur's germ theory developed. Louis Pasteur debunked spontaneous generation and laid the groundwork for modern medicine. His work, Pasteurization, started here, and this is where science was cutting through Neptune's fog. Something I can say about this, if you're not aware, this is like how the process of like pasteurizing things became, possible. And if you haven't looked into his work before, which you probably haven't, it really interests me, and I couldn't figure out why. And I went and looked at his chart, and I was like shocked that he had the same triple or quadruple conjunction I had. He has Saturn, Venus, Neptune, and Uranus all in Capricorn. And it's in his 4th house. And I was like reading about his family and how he had like a lab in his basement, and he would like do all of his like germ theory stuff. And he was like learning about like how to, prevent disease and all kinds of things. And he kept all these journals and all these notes, and he was very private about it. And he always told his family like, okay, if something happens to me, like go and, throw away everything, like disperse of all of my notes. I don't want people going through my stuff. But he was like super really weird and like super private. Fun fact. In 1871, we saw the yellow fever epidemic happen. And this was in obviously a number of different places, but Buenos Aires suffered a deadly outbreak, and it killed thousands of people, and then it exposed urban health crisis to growing cities. Now, what we did see in the 1860s is that the smallpox vaccination advanced, and we saw that there was vaccination laws spreading throughout Europe and Britain, curbing the disease, and they saw that this was a groundbreaking fix amidst the chaos of smallpox. And then we also saw in the 1860s, there was Lister's antiseptic surgery. So Joseph Lister introduced an acid to sterilize wounds, and this started slashing infection rates, and it was quite the revolution in health. So think of like any wound wash that you use now or things that they used prior to surgery. It was from that, which is so appropriate because Aries kind of deals with like the body, and it also deals with scars and wounds as well as cutting. So being able to do it in a safe way is very interesting, and using a rinse, right? Very Neptune. I was thinking about, Neptune being in a fire sign, and that, even though it's associated with water, I think that we are going to see definitely some prominent fires. And I went and looked in the past during this time, and I saw quite a few fires. Probably the most notable one is the Great Chicago Fire. In October of 1871, we saw the Great Chicago Fire, and this was happening simultaneously with another fire at the same time, the Peshtigo Fire, and this destroyed over 17,000 buildings and left over 100,000 people homeless. It killed about 300 people. Apparently a very dry summer, and wooden cityscapes set the stage. And apparently, there was just horror scenes everywhere. The rapid spread of, I think, the fire just really kind of reminds me of just how quickly something can kind of catch, and then all of a sudden it's just destroyed or it's dissolved or dismantled. That's very Neptune. We had the Peshtigo Fire going on in October of 71. It's considered to be one of the deadliest wildfires in U.S. history, raging through Wisconsin as well as Michigan, and it killed an estimated 1,200 to 2,500 people. We don't know the exact numbers because entire towns got wiped out, but It was then, thought that it was fueled actually by drought and high winds and logging debris, and it burned over 1.2 million acres in a single day. So this Aries kind of like ferocity, really paired with Neptune's blurring of boundaries, smoke and confusion, really makes, I think, some of these things really stand out to me. We had the Holland fire in October of 71, which was in Michigan. It burned 1.2 million acres near Lake Michigan. And apparently it had like a firestorm cluster. So I feel like this is about kind of like chaos and not being able to see things so clearly, and like slowly, but then suddenly everything at once. That's how things feel right now. All this Pisces energy, it's like everything is slow, and then it's going to be like boom, boom, boom. We're going to see things happen very quickly, very rapidly. Now, Neptune is known for seas and storms, right? Stormy weather. So I thought about, well, how did it impact coastlines? Like what happened with the Navy? Like what went on back then? And looking at this, it looked like we had the Great Flood of 1862. Apparently, this went on kind of from the end of December of 61 into January of 62, and there was a monster atmospheric river that drenched California, turning the Central Valley into a 300-mile long inland sea. Sacramento was completely submerged in some areas, and thousands died. We don't know the exact number, very Neptunian, but it's considered to be one of the worst U.S. floods in history, and obviously blending Neptune's kind of watery delusion with Aries' bold disruption. Now, we also saw Saxby Gale. This was in October of 1869. It was a fierce tropical cyclone that hit the Bay of Canada and New England with 100-mile-per-hour winds with a massive storm surge. It wrecked ships, flooded coasts, and killed dozens, and predicted a year earlier by naval officer that he got a prophecy that a stormy kind of situation was coming. And I guess like he tried to warn people, but people didn't listen to him. 1875, there was a massive earthquake in Colombia. Reports were muddled in terms of just quite what the scale was, but apparently it was pretty significant. And we also saw themes in previous cycles revolving around water consumption issues. So I talked a little bit about the cholera pandemic, and that this was really peaking during 1861 to about 1866. Obviously, contaminated water killed millions of people globally. London's outbreak alone claimed almost 5,000 people. And obviously Neptune rules water, but it also rules diseases. So in Aries, it's fast spreading plagues, right? And this is because of collective neglect. Neptune in Aries, it could be Pisces going into Aries, and issues with sanitation. Now, not many people know, but after the Civil War in the 1860s and 1870s, the U.S., both the South and the West, had significant water shortages that were hit hard after the war. And in the 1870s, we saw locust swarms devastating crops and, just major dry spells where trillions of bugs ate everything from Kansas to Texas. So that's something I would be thinking about. Water just wasn't just scarce then, it was like also like deadly and deceptive because we didn't necessarily know what was in it or if it was clean. Obviously we didn't have like bottled water back then. So we were learning a lot about sanitation and how to actually manage water and how to better prepare crops and other things for when we had drought. But in terms of like the seas and the coasts, we saw like I said, the Suez Canal open, which was a waterway that linked the Mediterranean to the Red Sea, and there was all kinds of new trade routes. We saw major coastal erosion from storms. This was something that came up a lot when I was doing my research. So the Great Flood from 1862 and the Saxby Gale battered coasts, and it eroded shorelines and it flooded ports. California saw dramatic reshaping, while Nova Scotia's fishing villages were completely swamped. And we saw tons of shipwrecks, okay, lots of them. In the early degrees of Aries, the Sabian symbols, it does kind of like connect to some shipwrecks, so it makes sense. But we saw all of these major storms, and it sank countless ships. Obviously, we hear the story of the city of Boston vanishing in 1870, where 200 people went missing. The Atlantic wreck in 1873, where 500 people died, and then the Nova Scotia flooding as well. So the seas, they were restless, and the coasts were reshaped, and they were kind of lashed around, and it was really wild, and they were becoming something that was brand new. And that was due to some of the storm surges, as well as some of like the flooding issues that were happening. So, you know, just some things to kind of think about. We have planets in different places this time around. So that's something else that I was kind of thinking about. But, you know, even though it's going to be new astrology, we will see some of the same themes from some of these particular time periods. Especially, it's going to be hard to escape because we're going to see a sextile from Pluto in Aquarius to Neptune in Aries. We're going to see a sextile from Uranus in Gemini to Neptune in Aries. So there's outer planets that are going to be kind of playing with this as well. Now, I think in terms of global matters for what's coming, you know, themes and impacts would be inspired revolutions, right? And I think there can be some positive things that can happen from this transit. I actually look forward to having it in Aries compared to it being in Pisces, because at least we're going to be able to see where the illusions are. But inspired revolutions, like collective movements might be emerging, and there's going to be like this fiery kind of like heroic zeal to it. Think like grassroots uprisings or, you know, crusades for justice fueled by a shared vision. I do think we're going to have some issues with confusion with leadership. I think that that's the brewing Saturn-Neptune conjunction that's kind of, you know, kind of happening all year until we get to February of 2026. But Aries rules the self, and I think that leaders might project a much more idealistic kind of persona. But Neptune's fog can obviously blur some of their true motives or their effectiveness. I'm watching for breakthroughs in creativity and technology, because I feel like the combo of Aries innovation and Neptune the combo of Aries innovation and Neptune's imagination might spark some kind of artistic renaissance and lots of like visionary intentions. Especially in virtual reality or AI. So it's going to be about how we are immersed in this new world and what we are seeing and what we're viewing or what we're exploring, right? So we might be exploring new places. So when I think of Neptune, I think of the sea, individuals exploring the sea more. I also think of all of these planets going into Aries, but especially Saturn and Neptune, because it's something that is so unbelievable we can't even imagine, and Saturn is going to make it real. And obviously all of this going into Aries, this is going to be about the future of humanity being able to survive through this move to be able to go and colonize Mars, right? Aries, Mars. So it is going to be about that. We are going to see that this is like the next big shift. And obviously, if you guys have been kind of following along with the astrology so far, in 2026, when Saturn and Neptune align, it'll be at 0 degrees. 0 degrees cardinal point, which is like the birth of something new. So it's going to be saying for future generations, for the future of mankind, that there is some, you know, important thing that we need to kind of start so that way we can continue. So I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on that. Like, how do you guys feel about potentially going to Mars? And then obviously we'll see themes revolving around conflict over beliefs. So, you know, Aries is war, right? And Neptune is spirituality. So we're going to see religious wars, spiritual wars, conflict revolving around our vision and our beliefs. And I think there'll be lots of passionate, you know, ideologies that'll clash. This could lead to both unity or division. And Neptune's kind of idealism, I think, paired with the aggressiveness of Aries might amplify feelings of people, you know, being like acting like martyrs, right? Or, you know, people who are also being more combative, or they're being more violent, you know, because they're so kind of like enraged due to their religious or their spiritual beliefs, that they feel like they have a right to go and be, you know, these crusaders for their beliefs. So yeah, religious wars is a theme. Also water wars or shortages, gas and oil wars. I think these are all things that you're going to start to see conflicts over these particular themes. Now, on an individual, you know, it's going to be very different, because you're looking at it now from like this, you know, 30,000 foot view. And now we're going to kind of scale in and talk about, okay, that's what's happened before. That's what's kind of going on in the world. But how is this going to impact you on a personal level? The positive, I think, is, you know, this is a call to an adventure, and it's going to have a mystical twist. And Neptune, I think, is going to add a little bit more magic to the Saturn transit, where Saturn in Aries does not perform well. I've used the reference, you're giving a toddler a suit and a briefcase and you send them off to work and they're like, what do I do? You know, they don't know what to do. So Saturn knows how to lead. It knows how to govern over things, but Aries does not know. It's just getting started. So we're going to see a lot of young leaders. But I also think that for many of us, it's going to be about us awakening to something in ourselves we did not know we had, something that we did not know we were as passionate about, or some new opportunity, you know, that we're going to be kind of taking on. So in a positive way, I think that, you know, we're going to feel braver to choose our dreams and tap into our intuition and assert our unique vision in the world. It's a chance to align with our identity, to align our identity with something much bigger. And this is also like stepping into your own hero's journey. So if you're not familiar with that, I'm going to be putting together a lecture on Saturn and Neptune and Aries pretty soon. So I talk a lot about the hero's journey and how it's important to have that vision for what you're hoping to achieve. Because without that vision, without that faith, you know, you feel lost and you don't really know where you're going. Now, the negative here is that there is the potential risk for getting lost in delusions of, you know, what is grand, and also acting recklessly or kind of half-baked ideas, or struggling with identity crisis if the real you feels murky. To give you an example, right? People who have been so tied up in their job, right? Or so tied up in a relationship, or so tied up in a lifestyle, that once that erodes, once that's removed, then there's like this sense of going, well, who am I? You know, I have always been a lawyer for 30, 40 years, and now I'm retired and I'm trying to figure out like who I am if I'm not attached, that identity is not attached to work. Or you've always been in a relationship and now maybe this is the first time that you're taking a period of time of not being in a relationship or focusing on a commitment, and you're realizing who you are and that you have been dedicating so much time, or you've been sacrificing so much of yourself for another person, that now you have to get to know yourself again. That's kind of the energy that we're going to see with Saturn and Neptune, I think, in Pisces, in Aries. But watching Neptune hit Aries first, I feel like is going to bring up for a lot of people like an identity crisis. So, you know, what you want to watch for is that, you know, there can be much more impulsive decisions being made. And I think it's going to be driven by fantasy, mental health issues, fear, isolation. And we can see impulsivity revolving around all kinds of things. So think like get rich quick schemes, or maybe, you know, just chasing mirages, chasing waterfalls, right? We could be going after this dream that we're so passionate about, but we may not be seeing things so clearly. It can also really heighten aggression and, you know, fanaticism if Neptune's illusions fuel Aries' warrior-like streak. So my fear, and I don't want to give into it, but my fear with this is that we're going to see wars, or we're going to see conflicts that are going to break out amongst countries, amongst individuals, amongst, you know, certain places where it's being fueled by conspiracy. It's being fueled by things that are meant to just literally, you know, shake everybody up. I think you guys have heard me in a previous video talk about how you can take red ants and black ants and put them together in a jar. And if they're just sitting in the jar, they're fine. But as soon as you shake it, you create that chaos, or you create that kind of, you know, hostility or like anger, you know, they start fighting each other. And so that's my concern, is that we're going to see events and things that are going to be happening that may not be real. They may be projections, they might be propaganda, they might be, you know, just rumors and things that are being put out there to just stir the masses and get everybody angry. So everybody's fighting each other and they're not paying attention to what's really going on. And also spiritual wars, right? I talk about spiritual wars and religious wars, but now whatever's been going on in the heavens, whatever's been happening in the ethers that we haven't seen, whatever kind of light versus dark stuff that's going on out there, if you believe in that, now is being brought down to our level. So now we're going to start seeing, well, how does that impact us? And why is this conflict going on? And is it a light versus dark, you know, heaven versus hell, good versus bad type of thing? Maybe. But I think that this is now where there is going to be this reckoning that's going to be happening for individuals, and we're going to start to kind of realize and put the pieces together why this has been orchestrated, and that it's been orchestrated to create more pain, conflict, anger, fear, hostility, you know, because it keeps the whole thing running. It keeps everybody scared and then disempowered. So that move of Neptune into Aries is like us realizing we have created our own self-contained prison. Like we've put ourselves in a situation where we're afraid to go out, we're afraid to speak out, we're afraid to share, we're afraid to get sick, we're afraid to travel, we're afraid to meet people, we're afraid to speak our mind and be ourselves. And now we're going to realize that if we continue to keep doing that, we're keeping ourselves small, right? We're not really going big out in the world. And I think that some people are going to start to see where they've shrunk down just to conform. And now we're going to start seeing that there's some opportunities for freedom, and people are going to be kind of a little hesitant to kind of, come out and be themselves. So watch for, potential issues with disillusionment and maybe dreams that don't match the outcome. There can be a tendency to be overly idealistic with a Neptune transit in that particular area of our chart. It might be stronger for you if you're experiencing a conjunction. But the positive is, like I said, I do think we're going to see a major surge of creative energy. So this is perfect for artists, dreamers, or anyone who's ready to take a leap of faith, right? This is about making your dreams a reality, putting it into action. Saturn's already been going through Pisces, preparing us for this. So we've been dreaming about it, praying about it, thinking about it, meditating on it. Now as planets move into Aries, it's going to be like, okay, it's go time. And we're going to realize that nobody is going to come and save us. And I'm going to keep saying this, and I know it sounds mean, but life's tough, get a helmet. What we're going to realize with this energy is that nobody's going to save us. That if we want to stay in La La Land or, be delusional, and be crazy, like we can try to convince others or project other people, but other people are going to be like, that's not my vision. That's not the vision that I share. Or that this is too much for me, or, it's bad for me to watch, to consume, to be listening to. I also think this is going to be bringing up some major shifts in regards to just people's religious and spiritual beliefs in general. So definite huge leaps of faith in action. I think we're going to see major revivals, major moves towards religious or spiritual movements. Obviously, the fact that Saturn and Neptune will conjunct in Aries makes me feel like there is the fall of a major organized religious entity or group coming with scandal. And I also think that we are going to see a major shift revolving around, people's practice. I think if I think of Aries, I think of nomadic, tribes. I think of caves and living in a very primitive way. And I think of the beginning of religion and spirituality and myth, and that it is actually derivative from, some of these ancient times where, we were looking up at the stars, or we were scrying in fire, or we were talking about the elements and how it's connected to all of these different gods. So there may be this shift to individuals returning to, paganism, or returning to traditional, forms of worship, or maybe having altar spaces or things in their home. It's about the personal connection that you have to your faith or your belief system, religion or spirituality. And also Aries is the body. So we're going to be learning more about how the body is actually the temple, and how that is all kind of directly connected. I've been thinking also about how the 0 degrees of Aries is so much about that birth. Aries is obviously, as you guys know, it's the lamb or it's the ram, depending on how you look at it. And it can be representing the the birth of a new religious figure. In particular, when we think about the last time these transits were happening, 2,500 years ago, I mean, we're basically talking about, the last time that there was, significant shifts in regards to the art of war. We also saw that this was the Bronze Age, so the development of tools. But this was also like right around the time we started seeing what eventually became some of the organized religions that we have now become. And so I've been thinking about it a lot. I'm like, man, like the Lamb of God, all these planets going through the 0 degrees, are we going to see some groups that are believing that it's the second coming? Possibly, yeah. I think a lot of people are going to think about that. I have a hunch, and this is more intuitive, but I have a hunch that this is also going to be leading the way where there's going to be a real search to genuinely try to find the bloodlines to Christ. And I know it sounds like some like Da Vinci Code stuff, but I think that's what's going on, that there is a search, or they're looking or trying to kind of find that bloodline to see who may still be around. Because that 0 degrees just keeps coming up so much that there's either going to be, I think, a second coming, if you believe in that, or there is going to be an ability to trace and connect the bloodline. So I don't know. What do you think about that? You think that's crazy? That's just kind of the feeling I get looking at the degrees. So why is it significant in Aries? Well, because first of all, it's a rare combination. You know, seeing, this planet go through this sign. Neptune takes about 165 years to circle the zodiac. So it only spends about 14 years or so in each sign. So it's marking the end of one chapter, Pisces, and the beginning of a fresh new chapter, because Aries is the start. So it's the initiator. So Neptune here can kind of feel like a cosmic reset, urging us to really dream boldly and act on it. And I think it's significant because it really challenges Neptune's usual kind of passive go with the flow nature, and it's forcing it to be proactive. It's putting it in, okay, let's do this mode. So you might really feel like, this tension that's kind of building up could actually be shaping, the next decade plus of our lives. So we really want to be paying attention, I think, to the energies of this particular ingress. Like I said, we're going to be looking at this really between the end of March of 2025 till about October 22nd, 2025. So anything 0 to about 2 degrees of Aries, pay attention. I will be coming back and we'll be doing more videos on this through the transits. I'm especially curious to see, Venus and Mercury kind of hitting these degrees, and then Saturn coming close to this degree as well. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But if we look just at the ingress chart, so you guys are watching this on the 25th, but if we look at the ingress chart of when Neptune moves, this will be March 30th, 2025. This is the same degree which Venus started her retrograde, okay? And this is where Venus will retrograde through several times. This is also where Mercury will retrograde through several times. It's already back in Pisces. This is the degree of the solar eclipse. So I'm not just looking at Neptune. I'm thinking like, oh my God, there's so many things happening all at the same time. In fact, Neptune enters into Aries the day after the solar eclipse in Aries. So we're going to have a solar eclipse, and then it's like, boom, moon conjuncts Chiron in Aries. And we've also got Neptune in this sign. And obviously Mars is the host of this. So, I'm not just looking at Neptune, which is at that 0 degree cardinal point, which we all know is a very significant point, because this is where we see huge, shifts in world events happen. But we're looking at Mars, which is in a sign that it does not behave well in. It's very testy. And Mars is squaring the moon, where there's some mutual reception. There is something going down connected to this Neptune ingress, without a doubt. There's too many triggers and too many things that are kind of pointing and suggesting that this is going to be like a flood of emotions, Mars in Cancer, a flood of, emotional situations on the home front with family. It's also going to be directly connecting, I think, to what's happened with homes and recent flooding events. Now, I can't promise you we're not going to see more. We are going to see more as Neptune is getting up to the late degrees, as Saturn's getting up to the late degrees of Pisces, and planets are retrograding over it. The South Node ruler, right? Mercury, and then Venus and the North Node. Something's going on. I don't know what. You're going to hear a lot of people talking about, water temperatures rising. You're going to hear people talking about, cleanliness of our oceans. You're going to hear talk about, drinking water and other things that may potentially be contaminated. Being that the ruler of this ingress is in a sign that is definitely very challenging, and seeing it in hard aspect to the moon, I don't have a very good feeling about this. My concern would be water contamination and people getting sick. And you guys have heard me talk about this throughout, before Saturn even went into Pisces, right? But this is definitely coming up in this chart, that there could be certain water systems that are under attack. There could also be issues revolving around things that could inflame the face, things that could inflame the sinuses, things that could be very much like, oh, it's allergies, and then people realize it's something else, right? So I'm not saying this is scary. I'm just letting you guys know that the ingress chart is definitely something that I was looking at for a little bit, and I'm not thrilled with some of these squares that I'm seeing here, because all of that is relaying back to what's going on with Neptune. And maybe, with the days leading up to the Sun-Neptune conjunction, you'll see some of it. I think most of the action is going to be about the end of May through about, you know, the end of June, because the end of March until about the end of June, because we're going to see Saturn kind of join the bunch. So you'll see down the road, let's see, then Saturn shows up, and I have a separate video on that for you guys. So you'll get that soon. Don't worry. Here we go. Saturn shows up in the end of May, 2 months later, and it's going to come into conjunction with Neptune, but they won't actually meet until 2026. So this period will be interesting to watch because, you know, we bring in the energy of, you know, Saturn, obviously, but a bit of in a funk in this sign, and it's conjunct Neptune, and it's going to be about eroding boundaries and limitations. And I'm going to talk to you guys about some of the Saturn-Neptune cycles, because this is actually the first time we're seeing the Saturn-Neptune conjunction next year in 2026 since like 89, you know, 1990, the last time that it kind of happened in Capricorn. So I'm working on that for you guys, but I want to focus more on Neptune right now. And like I said, I'll come back, I'll do some more videos on this, but I just keep thinking about how this is the preparation year before we get into the real conjunction, which will be in February of 2026. And what we're going to see on February 20th, okay? Saturn conjuncts Neptune. Look at the moon. The moon is there. And all of this conjunction at a 0 degree is going to be about that rebirth, something new for humanity, being more independent, being more self-focused, being more also, I think, like entrepreneurial. Like this is a lot about what we can achieve, what we can do on our own. So some may speculate that this is the turning point where people are going to be like, yes, I am living off the grid, or I'm not wanting to be in a city, or I want to have my own wells and water reserve, you know, kind of preservation. Something like that's happening. Well, look, Mars is the ruler, and Mars is in Aquarius, and it's coming into a square with Uranus. So it can mean that this is where collectively we're kind of breaking free from or liberating ourselves from financial systems, from banking, you know, themes revolving around resources, food. And I definitely feel like, you know, like I've said in the previous videos, you know, fortune favors the bold this year and next year. In 2025, we are in a 9 Mars year. So it's already about taking action, getting out there, you know, taking the initiative, and also wrapping things up before we have what will be a new year next year. So check out my horoscopes for more on this if you guys want to see some of that stuff. I'm going to briefly go through just talking to you guys about where this Neptune transit in the sign of Aries is going to be taking place for the 12 rising signs. Now, I do recommend listening to your rising sign, as your rising sign is going to tell you quite literally which part of your life, which house you're going to be seeing this Neptune ingress. And I think that that's really important that you listen to the rising sign. You could listen to the whole sign if you don't know your exact degree, because it's going to be 0 degrees of Aries. So it's just the beginning of one particular house. You can also listen for your sun or your moon sign. I think your sun sign will be really great for your own personal creativity, your career, happiness, or joy. And your moon sign is going to more correlate with your emotional nature, maybe your home or your family kind of themes as well. Now, I don't want you guys just to look at, you know, where Neptune is in Aries, okay? Because remember, there has been a retrograde in this part of the sky by the time that we are, you know, getting to the end of March. Mercury and Venus are retrograde. So there are things that we have to go back and deal with in Neptune, in Pisces, which makes perfect sense because obviously Neptune is associated with Pisces. So you want to kind of take a broader look at it and kind of go, okay, what's happening in February, March, April? What's getting reorganized, you know, in the Pisces area before Saturn shows up and then things get real. And also you can think about where Mars is in Cancer in your chart as well, that house is somehow influencing or impacting some of the new things that you're opening up to, becoming aware of, or maybe feeling called or inspired to go and do. All right, so with that being said, we're going to start with my Aries and Aries risings. You guys are kind of like the stars of the show. I've said this for like pretty much March and April with the eclipses and the retrogrades, and then obviously Saturn and Neptune getting ready to go into your sign. There's a lot happening. And if you have anything around 0 to about 2 degrees of Aries, sun, moon, rising, or personal planet, this is all about you, okay? This is all about you. So I'm predicting for my Aries risings that your sense of self, it becomes a little softer. It becomes a little bit more sensitive. Like you're gonna have like this kind of like dreamy like makeover. And you might feel inspired to reinvent yourself, but you're maybe feeling a little confused about your direction, and like the doubt can kind of creep in a little bit. Like, who am I? What am I doing? You know? I do think that the theme here is about a spiritual identity quest and really blending the I am with what's beyond me. And I would recommend for this transit channeling this really bold creative energy into projects or self-discovery through meditation. Certainly meditation, hypnosis, water healing, all those things can be helpful with Neptune in your sign. I would avoid chasing every shiny fantasy because there's going to be a number of them that are going to come in. And this is about really grounding your dreams with a plan. Now, for a lot of you Aries risings, this is directly connected to, this month and next month, reflecting on your beliefs, your visions, maybe taking some quiet time to just kind of heal or get some extra rest. And it's also connected to Mars, which is your chart ruler, which has been in the 4th house. So peace within the home, maybe making decisions about what's changing at home. If you're moving, if you're staying, maybe this is going to be about being able to create like a little spiritual area in your home. But Neptune going into your sign, I think, is the kind of preparatory transit before Saturn shows up, and there's going to be a new identity that's going to be emerging for you. And maybe it's working for yourself. Maybe it's being more independent. Maybe it is going through a complete makeover. But these things right now are still up in the air. So you're going to have to be really thinking about that and trying to kind of be as grounded as you can, because Neptune on the ascendant can make you more prone to getting sick. You can have lower energy levels. You could be really tired all the time, kind of wiped out. But on the positive, it can also be a very inspiring transit. You might become very spiritual or religious. You might start meditating. This can also be a time where your intuition might be very strong, and visions and kind of your spidey senses are kind of kicking in. Let me know how it's going, Aries. Would love to hear from you guys, to hear what you think about this transit and how you're experiencing it so far. We've got Taurus and Taurus rising. Taurus, you're going to be experiencing Neptune transiting into Aries in your natal 12th house. And truth be told, the 12th house is kind of like the cocoon house. So it is private. It's very subconscious. This is about kind of Neptune slipping into the 12th and like stirring your subconscious. So I would expect vivid dreams, spiritual insights, or even like a pull towards solitude, and Aries can be about fitness as well. So it can be about like, going through a period where you just really want to be working out alone, or you're wanting to go to a private studio, or you're wanting to do hot yoga. It can be also about just taking time alone to better yourself and to work on yourself, but you're definitely going to feel that need for solitude that's going to come in. Now, the theme here is obviously hidden depths and uncovering what's been kind of buried beneath your steady exterior. Taurus risings are known for their cool, calm, collected demeanor, but with Aries in the 12th, you're often at odds with yourself, or there is some kind of like war going on in your mind. So I think that that's going to come up, and you're going to be seeing that this is about exploring the subconscious through journaling or therapy. I would watch for escapism and overindulging, okay, which could cloud your sometimes practical nature. Now, Neptune is connected to your friends and also your allies, as well as your goals. So I could definitely see Neptune kind of dipping in where you'd rather spend time alone rather than with groups of people, or you're feeling overwhelmed by what's going on with others, or you are taking time to sit down and meditate and like visualize some of your goals. Simultaneously, Mars has been in your 3rd house. So that's why I'm recommending journaling. I think journaling can be really helpful and better expressing your emotions and where it is that you want to go. And you're going to be seeing that these planets that are retrograding into the 11th are just having you reassess some of your social connections and making sure that if you're in a situation where friends are making you feel isolated or lonely, or maybe some friends are making you feel iced out, you are sorting through some of that stuff and maybe coming to terms with being okay having more time on your own, if it means that it's going to be positive for you emotionally or spiritually in the long run, and just how much you can get done behind the scenes. Okay. All right. So I hope that's helpful for you, Taurus and Taurus risings. Let me know. We've got Gemini and Gemini rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Neptune entering into Aries in your natal 11th house. Now for you guys, this is a house that is directly connected to friends and your social circle, and possibly finding like more of like a mystical, magical bunch of people that you can be connecting with. So you might be joining an idealistic group. You might be feeling a little disillusioned by flaky connections. There can also be some friends that might seem like a little crazy. You got to watch out for cults with Neptune in the 11th house as well. But I do think that this is about collective dreams and navigating inspiration and illusion through community. So artists, music, magical people. These are the people you're going to be spending time with. And I would really recommend seeking kind of kindred spirits and sharing, your vision with other people. Don't let groupthink blur your sharp mind, and question the hype. Now, Neptune is going to be retrograding back into Pisces, and it's connected to your 10th house in modern day terms. So watching like Neptune go into your 11th, it can mean that you feel like you're trying to wrangle sheep, literally. Especially if you're managing, or if you're leading a team or a group, or you're, feeling maybe more so responsible for like motivating a group of people to see the vision that you're trying to kind of make happen professionally at work. We've also seen recently Mars has been retrograde in Cancer, and it's directly kind of connected to this. So a lot of this is working with groups of people to feel more so wanted, valuable. This can also mean that through socializing and networking, it could bring you more money. So that's another positive theme. I think it's also going to be great to have Neptune out of Pisces, where maybe there's been some confusion about your work or your life purpose or your direction. And now you can kind of focus on being able to have more social time and play time with other people, and feeling more so valuable because of your connection or contribution to a group. Okay? Good luck, Gemini. We've got Cancer and Cancer rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Neptune going into the sign of Aries. So it's going into another cardinal sign. So if you have anything 0 to 4 degrees of Cancer, you'll be experiencing a Neptune square, which can soften things, blur the lines a little bit. It can also be a time that things feel a little confusing. So just be mindful of that. But Neptune moving into the 10th house, your career is getting like a Neptunian glow up, basically. At some point, you will see that over the next 2 or 3 years. You could be drawn to visionary work, but you could also feel lost or confused in your professional path. This can be a time where you're wanting to go into, the mystical arts. You're wanting to work more with art or music, or maybe spirituality or religion. This could also be a time where you're feeling inspired to go and do something new. Now, I encourage you guys to really focus on finding a calling with a cause and merging your intuition with your ambition. That's very Neptune in Aries. And I recommend pursuing roles that feel soulful, like art or healing, and clarifying your boundaries so you don't drift into burnout or deception. Now, Neptune is connected to your 9th house, so you may feel like you need a mentor or somebody to guide you if you're going to do a new type of work. You might feel like you need to go back to school and you're trying to figure out where to do that, how to do that. Maybe you're wanting to get into religion or philosophy or spirituality, and that's the connection to the 9th house. Traveling might be a part of work as well as like publishing or teaching. And Mars recently has been retrograde in your sign, and now it's direct. So your actions, your drive, your passion is really leading the way for some new beginning when it comes to your career. And I think that a lot of Cancer and Cancer risings may be embracing, starting their own business, becoming an entrepreneur, going into a completely different line of work. And it's all going to be based off of whether or not you feel up to the task of being able to do that. So this will be something that'll unfold, obviously, especially over the next couple of weeks. You're going to want to be patient, but those eclipses and retrogrades in your 10th house are saying a lot of the same things. Good luck. We've got Leo and Leo rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Neptune moving into the sign of Aries in your natal 9th house. All right, Leo. Well, good news for you. This is happening in a fellow fire sign. So if you have 0 to about 4 degrees of Leo, sun, moon, or rising, you'll be experiencing a Neptune trine. This can be softer, more harmonious, spiritual, uplifting, creative. And I think a lot of this for you guys is really about adventure. Okay, so the 9th house is about adventure. Aries is about initiating and starting one. And adventure is definitely calling here. So travel, philosophy, higher learning might spark your spirit through some beliefs. Some new beliefs and old ones also may dissolve. I think the theme here is just like a quest for meaning. I think this is about expanding your heart and your mind with a fiery new sense of faith or self. And I recommend exploring new cultures or ideas boldly and testing your visions against reality to avoid chasing mirages. Now, the 9th house might be you're going to school in a foreign land, right? You are setting out to write your novel. You are going back to school for a new degree. Any of these things can happen here. And with Neptune's connection to the 8th house, it can be a little tricky in terms of your emotional or psychological beliefs. It could also be in regards to money, you know, the funding for going to school, the funding for going on trips. And there's some stuff that's kind of getting worked out here. Obviously, the 9th house is also associated with like teachers. So new teachers can show up, people who are culturally or spiritually kind of diverse. And also this can be about legal matters. So if you're kind of having some confusion about a financial situation or about an inheritance or an estate matter or even a tax matter, you know, you might be like, I'm lost. What do I do? I'm looking for somebody who can kind of help me when it comes to some of these, some of these financial or legal things. So watch for that as well. Good luck, Leo. I think it's going to be good for you. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. I think a lot of you guys are going to be embracing traveling for either spiritual reasons, or you're going to see that it's worth investing into learning something new. We've got Virgo and Virgo rising. What's going on, Virgo? You're going to be experiencing a Neptune ingress into the sign of Aries. This is going to be taking place for you in your 8th house. This is an interesting place because, as you know, all this Aries energy does not always resonate with you. You guys quincunx each other, so you don't have a lot in common. So it might be a little bit more difficult dealing with some of these energies, but you know, the 8th house is an interesting place. The 8th house does deal with what is hidden. It can also be subconscious. It could be about trauma. It could be about endings and beginnings. And there is some kind of exchange that happens in the 8th house. Some planets always go through a profound transformation. They kind of go to hell and back. So Neptune going into this house, really for me, I look at more, not just the house, but the sign. Okay, so Aries is the self, and the 8th house is transformation of self or transformation of, well, other people's money, right? So what does Neptune rule in your chart? Well, it rules relationships. So now there is a transformation of relationships going on that is deeply psychological, sexual, it can be financial. It can also mean that there is some significant change going on with other people's money. So you got to be careful with loans and debts and scams and, you know, what you're paying for versus what somebody owes you. Insurance matters can be a theme here also. I think that with Saturn getting ready to go there, with, you know, Neptune going to be there, with retrogrades there, a lot of Virgos and Virgo risings are seeing lots of changes going on with like their debt or their money owed or what they're paying off or their partner's income. That's what I've observed. And I think that just in general, in a nutshell, you know, Neptune in the 8th feels like deep water to me. This is about shared resources, intimacy, and also the transformation of those things can be Neptunian, so they could be not so clear. So I would expect intensity, but also potential for confusion, you know, merging with mystery, letting go of control of some of your vulnerable spaces is going to be a theme. And also trusting your gut in partnerships or investments. You know, double check the details and really make sure that you're not overlooking things which could lead to deceit in some cases with money and other people or wishful thinking. Good luck. We've got Libra and Libra rising. What's going on, Libra? You're experiencing Neptune getting ready to go into Aries, your opposite sign, in your 7th house of relationships. All right, so if you have anything 0 to about 4 degrees of Libra, sun, moon, or rising, you're going to be impacted by a Neptune opposition, okay? And oppositions are relational, which means it's coming from outside of you, all right? So Neptune going into the 7th house is blending your 6th house Lord and moving it into the house of partnerships. But this could be, you know, working with a therapist. This could be working with an astrologer. It could be about trying to get clarity in existing relationships. It could be really good to work with like a hypnotherapist or a therapist or a coach, right? I think these would be good ways to use these transits that might offset some of the more difficult energy of the Neptune ingress. You know, I'm predicting that relationships are either going to become very dreamy, and it's almost going to be for some people, they're going to be like, oh my God, I met this person, the most amazing person, and, you know, like this just whirlwind romance, literally. Or relationships can become very chaotic. It almost can feel like a battlefield with planets, you know, going in and out of Aries. And, you know, you have a benefic, Venus, your ruler, at the time of the ingress, that's going into the 6th. So it's trying to remedy problems and issues maybe in relationships, but there could be lack of awareness of either yourself or the other person of what they're doing wrong. Now, if you're single, it might be easier to navigate, but it can also be the sense of being like, how do I find someone? You know, how can I trust people? I don't know what I want, or I'm meeting some strange and unusual people. I find that what's probably going to happen is that a lot of people are going to be idealizing their partners or facing illusions shattering. So the reality of some new kind of relationship is going to be emerging. Now, watch for, you know, love mirages and also balancing romance with reality. I would recommend seeking soulful connections, but keeping your scales ready and, you know, not losing yourself in other people's projections. 7th house is known for that. It's like a mirror. So it's going to bounce things back to you. So there could be situations going on with, you know, business partners, clients, with romantic partners, spouses, where they could be basically being like, you're doing this, and they don't see, because Neptune in the 7th house is not self-aware. It's like the 1st house of another person. They're not self-aware of what they're doing, where they're isolating themselves, where they're being crazy, but also where there's deceit or deception. And a lot of Libra risings, unfortunately, are going to be starting to see that secrets are actually coming out over the next month or two in your relationships. And this is due to the solar eclipse and the retrogrades. Now, with Neptune being here, some Libra risings are going to start noticing that their partners are drinking, okay? Or they're hiding something, or they're not being completely honest, or they're doing drugs, or they're having mental health issues. And I don't like saying this. I'm just telling you guys that you need to watch for this because it comes up so significantly in your chart. I think that this can be about finding ways to help others, but also knowing where you can only help people so much, and that if they're not taking accountability for their own behavior, then, you know, it may be bringing up a theme where you're thinking about, you know, giving somebody some space. Now, Mars is the ruler of all this. It's been in the 10th house. So for a lot of Libra and Libra risings, it could have been inner office relationship drama. It could also be that there has been some major potential changes going on with a relationship. Mars in your 10th house is connected to career, but it's relationship statuses. So if you're a Libra rising that's been back and forth about a relationship, it could be about whether or not you're going to finalize a divorce, if you're going to initiate a divorce, if you're going to work through something, and if you're going to hit restart in your relationship, how that's impacting you with Mars in the 10th house, because this is about you being more assertive when it comes to what you will or will not kind of put up with or participate in when it comes to relationships, okay? Let me know, Libra. I'd love to hear your thoughts in how this unfolds for you. Good luck. We've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. What's up, Scorpio? You're going to be experiencing Neptune entering into the sign of Pisces. Leaving the sign of Pisces, entering into the sign of Aries in your natal 6th house. You're like, yeah, it's been there. So this is a little different than having Neptune in Pisces. Obviously, now it's moving into a fire sign, and it's a sign that is in conjunct or quincunx your sign. So you don't have a lot in common with Aries other than you're both ruled by Mars. Anyway, the 6th house is a bit of a tricky house. So, you know, the 6th house deals with, obviously, work, scheduling, health, productivity, being of service, right? Helping other people, our pets, our office, our schedule. And I'm sure you're going to get lots of work in this area of your chart with some of the ingresses and the retrogrades. So you're going to have an idea of what's going on. But as somebody who's had Neptune going through my 6th house for the last like 7-8 years, I can tell you that this is a tricky transit. And I found that it got even trickier 2 years ago when Saturn showed up. So I'll try to give you guys as much insight as I can. Let's talk about what Aries is. Aries is the self, what I can or I am doing, right? And then the 6th house is health, wellness, work, responsibility, scheduling. So what you're going to be looking at is like work and health, and it might have a spiritual twist with Neptune going into the 6th house. Certainly like meditation can be helpful in incorporating that into your daily routines. 6th house can be habits and also grooming. So it might mean that you're making more of an effort to work out. Maybe you're, making more of an effort when it comes to your diet or your nutrition. This could also mean that you're taking it upon yourself to take action and to take responsibility for your health or to tackle a bad habit. You might find that there is purpose and service, but you also might struggle with vague, kind of routines, lack of routine, lack of awareness. You can have weird, strange health things that can come up, all kinds of strange symptoms and stuff, and you don't know what it is, and it can be hard to kind of figure out or diagnose. I also think that this is going to be about healing through doing and infusing daily life with a deeper meaning. So making time for prayer, meditation, fitness, saunas, infrared therapy lights can also be really helpful for some of you guys. And obviously, Saturn coming into Neptune as well is going to be about like, are you going to start walking regularly? Are you going to start journaling regularly? Are you going to get involved in a community gym? Like something like that might happen for you. And I'm recommending experimenting with creative outlets or wellness products, but avoid over-idealizing fixes, like stick to what works. And usually it's something instinctual if it's in Aries. Chiron is in this house too, so it's definitely about healing, especially any like head injuries, allergies, sinus-related stuff with the forehead, anything connecting to burns, cuts, scars, bumping your head. And some of you guys can be more prone to having some of these injuries. Obviously, touch wood, but I'm just letting you know. I've had Saturn and Neptune go through my 6th house now. It's almost done. I'm going to touch wood for myself, but I have found that the sign on the 6th house cusp does actually influence some of the health things that happen. So mine's a little bit different because it's Pisces, but for Aries, it's where are there habits that you need to be better about curbing? And literally Saturn and Neptune in the 6th house is a great time to be like, I'm not drinking alcohol, or I'm going to be, sitting in the sauna twice a week, or I'm going to the gym every other day. Like these are the types of things that can be beneficial. And it's about kind of creating this ideal version for yourself or this ideal schedule. But at first it's going to feel like you don't have any control and you might feel victimized by your schedule and that there's too many things happening at one time, and it's by design. It's kind of like blitzing you, so that way you go, okay, I got to communicate what I can and cannot do. And I also need to be incorporating fitness or breath work into kind of better balancing my schedule. Now, in recent months, we've seen Mars retrograde, which is directly connected to this. And Mars has been in your 9th house. So this tells me that there has been this kind of reviewing or delays that have been happening with travel, or there have been some delays happening with education or school or training. And that's been directly impacting, kind of feeling like you're swamped with your schedule, or you're swamped with like a health issue and you're like, oh my God, this is stressing me out. I'm feeling crazy, and it's because something has been slowed down. So my advice is that a lot of this is also about incorporating, well, hold on a second. We need more 9th house stuff. We need more time for studying. We need more time for traveling. We need more time for, being positive and kind of optimistic about what the future holds, or learning. And in order to do that, literally this is you having to take the bull by the horns going, what can I and can I not do schedule wise? And like, where am I drowning because I have maybe overcommitted myself to something? So you're going to get a crash course the next 2 or 3 years in like how to better manage your schedule, how to be more productive, how to be healthier. It does feel challenging, but ultimately it's on you, Scorpio. So if you're feeling like you're constantly bogged down, or you're messy, or you're disorganized, or whatever in your office, in your schedule, in your life, this is the time to kind of really take control. Okay? Good luck, guys. We've got Sag and Sag rising. Sag, you're going to be experiencing Neptune ingressing into Aries in your natal 5th house. And yes, it's in a fellow sister fire sign. So if you have anything 0 to 4 degrees of Sagittarius, I predict this is going to be a pretty dreamy, romantic time for you, as it'll be making trines to your placements. Now, the 5th house is one of the better houses in astrology. The 5th house deals obviously with creativity and romance. This is where some kind of passion is going to ignite something for you guys. Inspiration flows, but you might blur the lines between passion and fantasy. Now, the 5th house also is about children. It is about romance, dating, creative expression, hobbies, self-love here as well, okay? And the inner child can be found in the 5th house. So the theme here is like finding a fiery muse and expressing your soul with some kind of bold sense of self-expression. I'm thinking like a lot of you guys might be getting into dance, you might be getting into painting, creating, could be photography, it could be that you're wanting to get more involved in some kind of physical fitness that's water related as well with Neptune and Aries. And I'm really just recommending you guys to dive into art, love, and play. Just anchor your wild ideas with a touch of discipline and make them real. Now, recently we have seen the ruler or the dispositor of Neptune, Mars, retrograde. So it's been turned retrograde in your 8th house of joint finances, psychological themes, trauma, healing. So I'm wondering, like, have some Sag and Sag risings been feeling like there's been a lot coming up about the changes that have maybe been happening in your home or the changes happening in your finances, and maybe there's been some shifts. Maybe money has come your way. Maybe now there's more financial support. Maybe you've got a partner helping you with the bills, or you've inherited some money, or you're making more money. Suddenly this is going to give you the ability to then say, okay, now I can go play. Now I can create. Now I can explore. And Neptune is directly connected to your 4th house. So it's kind of playing on those like Mars retrograde themes in Cancer where, you know, your 4th house ruler, home, family, the past is moving into the 5th. So certainly like your home could be your, it could be like your palette, right? That you can go and you can kind of paint and you can do whatever you want. So maybe you're expressing yourself more at home, creating an entertainment space, learning a, like an instrument, especially dance, music, art. You know, taking paint classes can be good. There can be some kind of fogginess or vagueness that can be going on revolving around children, right? We can see children being a little distant or maybe having some health-related issues. You can also see that there's some confusion that can happen in your love life. So much about Neptune is having a hard time figuring out what's real. And I think that with Neptune in your 5th house, if you're finding ways to create and play or maybe kind of better express yourself or just being better with working with that inner child, you're not going to have some of the challenging effects that you can have with Neptune in the 5th. Careful with gambling. There can be gambling addiction stuff that can come through this. There can also be, you know, just kind of feeling like love struck with Neptune in this sign. But I think for the most part, you guys are enjoying it. I really feel like a lot of Sag risings are really kind of clearing out any issues from their past, family trauma issues, any inner child issues in preparation to kind of let love in. And whether that's a relationship, better self-love, or raising a child, this is definitely kind of what's opening up for you for Neptune and Aries. Good luck, guys. We've got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Neptune moving into the sign of Aries in your natal 4th house. And obviously Aries is a cardinal sign, so it's squaring you Capricorn. So if you have anything about 0 to 4 degrees of Capricorn, you're going to be feeling the effects of this Neptune square throughout this year. Well, the 4th house, right? The root of the matter. Home, family, property, things kind of connected to your private life, your parents, your homeland. This is also a part of the chart that is incredibly sensitive. It's about the past and dealing with the past, which is kind of ironic considering Aries is about, you know, what's new and what's emerging. I think about not just Neptune going into this house, but I think about Saturn going into this house. And I know I talked about this with a lot of your videos recently, but I'm going to keep harping on this. Saturn is going to go through the same degrees, okay? So where Neptune is where your chart ruler is about to be. And many Capricorn and Capricorn risings, I think just quite literally are going to be dreaming of living in a foreign land or moving to a foreign place or living off the grid or being more independent, buying their first home, getting their first apartment, finally living on their own in some capacity, while others are going to be asked to go home. Or maybe you're trying to define what home is. Obviously, Neptune's connected to your third house, so this is about siblings, aunts, uncles, or cousins, or neighbors. So some of you guys are like, okay, you know, I am communicating with my family. My parent needs me to come home and help, or my neighbors are driving me crazy. I want to move far away. I want to be somewhere off the grid or somewhere rural. It could also mean that there is some sense of dissolving the boundaries or disconnecting maybe with certain relatives. But I think that because Aries is new, a lot of this is Capricorn's waking up and realizing that you're about to embark on a brand new life, whether it's living somewhere new, buying a new home, moving to a new place, if it's a new chapter when it comes to your home and your family. I really think that your home can take on this kind of like dreamy haze in a way. So you might be craving an ideal sanctuary and you might feel more elusive than normal. Be careful, you know, the theme here is about water and home. So sometimes, touch wood, I see issues with water, like pipes and pools and kitchens, and people who have issues with mold. On the other hand, this can be about building a soulful, you know, base amidst what kind of feels like is shifting ground, okay, or sand that's kind of moving beneath you. So we can also see foundation issues that can kind of happen here as well. I think a lot of it's just going and getting accustomed or getting familiar with a new place that feels foreign to you. So you don't have to move to a foreign country, but it might mean that you're moving somewhere that is very different than where you have traditionally lived. And I do really recommend creating a cozy, inspiring space. Be wary of just glossing over family tensions, and it's about really addressing what's real. And I think you will when Saturn, you know, comes into your fourth house as well. Recently, Mars, the ruler of this transit, has been retrograde in the 7th. And so I think a lot of the changes going on the home front are being brought on by changes in relationships. You know, relationships with family members, but also if you're getting married and moving, if you're separating and moving out of a space, if you're moving because you want to meet somebody. There's been a storyline revolving around some of the changes going on with relationships, and that's somehow kind of connected to what's happening with home and family. I can only tell you as a natal Neptune in the 4th house that your intuition gets pretty strong. You're going to feel like you're having dreams about the past. There's also going to be potential issues with storms and flooding around your home. So if you live in like coastal areas or anything like that, you got to pay attention. It can mean that you start to kind of feel like the black sheep of the family, especially when Saturn shows up, or you're feeling like you're breaking with tradition with how you have always done things. And you know, you want to create your own little like Zen den. You want to create a space that's going to be very safe and protected and almost like your little church. So music, flowing water, obviously also anything that's connected to raising the vibrations and being able to kind of keep the peace at home can be very helpful as you go through this transit. Anyway, I hope that's helpful for you guys. Let me know what happens and how you do with that square. We've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. What's up, Aquarius? You're going to have Neptune going into Aries in your natal 3rd house. So this is Neptune moving into a part of the skies for you that deals with communication. So communication, learning, studying, short distance trips, extended relatives like aunts, uncles, cousins, siblings, cars, and how you think, write, or share. Now, Neptune moving into the 3rd house, I think it's a great transit for learning divination. Okay, so if you want to learn tarot, if you want to learn astrology, if you want to learn about meditation, if you want to learn about hypnosis, this would be a good transit for that, investing time and money and energy into these things if they interest you. But I also think that this is where like communication gets a little bit more poetic or muddled. So your mind might buzz with visionary ideas, or you might feel like you're kind of straying into confusion. When Saturn shows up in a couple months, it can help you kind of taper this and get a little bit more grounded. But you may feel like there are, words of wonder, bringing intellect and intuition together, feeling inspired to write, to create a podcast, launch a business online, create a website, start writing a book. These are things that you might be interested in. And I think with Neptune's connection to your 2nd house, a lot of you guys want to make money this way. It's like, you're going to feel more fulfilled. And I think that that's the connection to the 2nd house and the self-esteem. So Neptune moving into the third is like, man, I would feel fulfilled or validated if I get monetized, or if I sell my book, or if I'm able to launch this website, you know? And I think that can be good for a lot of you guys, especially because this is an entrepreneurial energy. I think that you're going to be learning more about money, having to go through more contracts and conversations and communications about money. I also feel like this is about sharing your thoughts through writing or speaking. And I would say this is great for that, but just make sure you're fact checking your inspirations to keep your brilliance clear, because there can be a lot of confusion revolving around what you believe in and like what you find valuable, and communicating and talking about some of these things, because there can be a lot of confusion around money because of Neptune's connection to your second house. And then look at all these retrogrades that are going on in the second house as well. So it's almost going to feel like, you know, March and April is going to be this whole reassessment of what do I have, what do I need, what do I value, what am I cutting back, so that way I can have my dream car, my dream computer, my, you know, my dream trip, whatever. And that might be as a result of some changes with your finances that you're actually doing now. Now, a lot of this has also been brought on by Mars, which has been retrograde in Cancer in your 6th. So there has been maybe changes happening with your health, your schedule, your day-to-day routine, changes in the office space, which is influencing how you communicate, how you connect, or, you know, maybe your schedule has changed. Maybe you went from working full-time to part-time. Now you can travel, third house. Maybe you went from working part-time to now full-time, and there's some mental stress and you're not really sure how to communicate and kind of gauge and work through some of the things going on with your schedule. Certainly breathing health, health revolving also around the head, the face, any inflammation also that can be kind of coming up might be something that you're trying to kind of trigger and clear in your body. And that might be through learning more about health and what you should or should not be eating. That can also be part of this as well. Hopefully that's helpful for you guys. Obviously, Neptune sextiling Pluto in your sign definitely aids to that profound sense of personal change. And I think that that could be better expressed through being a little bit more understanding, you know, sensitive, empathic, and being able to kind of really wield that power in a very beautiful way that doesn't have to be as intense or as combative as some of the planets and signs are. Okay? Good luck. Words will be your superpower. All right, we've got finally Pisces and Pisces rising. Congratulations, Pisces. You guys are graduating this year. You get a break. It'll be back later in the fall, but finally Neptune is leaving your sign. So maybe leave some good words of advice for Aries and Aries risings. Pisces, your chart ruler, one of your chart rulers is changing signs. It's going into Aries. So it's going to be moving into your second house, and it's leaving your first house. And with quite a pop, right? Like seeing Mercury and Venus retrograde in your sign, and then Saturn is leaving, and then you have eclipses. So I'm predicting for my Pisces risings that this is a period of really getting your self-worth in check. Okay, and it could go one way or the other. Also, money stuff can feel very confusing and Neptunian. Not having a lot of clarity about that can definitely happen as, you know, Neptune kind of muddies the waters in your second house. But remember, it's your first house ruler. So it's, what am I doing? Where is my action? So it might mean that you're, you know, doing meditations on self-love. You are visualizing and manifesting more money. You are doing your best not to play the victim or feel victimized or, you know, be a victim of circumstance. You're trying to look at it as, I'm strong, I'm brave, I'm the hero. I'm not going to feel like this was done to me. And it's about overcoming that and building healthier self-esteem. I think you could tap into intuitive abundance or wrestle with financial fog. And obviously the theme here is like valuing the intangible, because Neptune is intangible. So it's about redefining wealth beyond material. What do I have? Oh, I have my body, right? Saturn in the North Node in the first. I have myself. I have 2 hands. I have 2 legs, hopefully. So I'm capable, and it's about being able to kind of reinforce that you are going to save you. Nobody's going to do it for you. You're going to do it. And working out what it is that you do, what you do value and what you need. And I think a lot of it's learning to value yourself. I think this is also about trusting your instincts with resources, but set firm boundaries and don't let generosity dissolve your stability. That can definitely be a theme here. And in recent months, we've had Mars, which is connected to this Neptune ingress retrograde. It's been in Cancer. So it's been about, I think, trying to find new creative ways to make money. I think it's like Do I want to do trading? Do I want to do, some kind of creative project? Do I want to be self-employed? What do I value? What do I truly want? And for some of you guys, it could be a relationship. It could be a baby. It could mean that you want more free time, to play. And it could mean that you're finding through some of these hobbies that could be side hustles that there is a new avenue for you to make money in ways that you never imagined or dreamed you could or you would. So obviously there's more of an entrepreneurial spirit kicking in, retrogrades there, eclipses there, Saturn going there. Saturn leaving your sign and Neptune leaving your sign is going to give you a moment where you can kind of breathe. Know that they will be back, though, at the end of the year before in 2026 they finally move. So now that you've been working on yourself, building yourself up, now it's time for you to get kind of more so clear about how you feel about your financial situation, how you want to make more money, what your financial dreams are, and how to make them a reality. And now all of the money stuff is going to be getting real for you guys. So, make it be that you're spending money on things that you love, or that money is incentivizing you, to want to do what you love. And hopefully it can bring you much better self-esteem, which could also enhance some of your guys' love life as well. I hope that's helpful and inspiring and giving you guys a little bit more insight and in-depth look at Neptune and Aries. If you guys subscribe to my channel, you can stay tuned and watch along as these transits happen in real time. I will continue to put out videos as we get closer and throughout the next several weeks and months ahead of the Neptune in Aries transit. If you like this, give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to leave me a comment below and let me know, how are you feeling with this? I'd love to hear from people who have Neptune in the first house, because that's kind of like a Neptune and Aries vibe. Or I'd love to hear from people who maybe have Neptune conjunct Mars. That would also be kind of a Neptune and Aries vibe. You guys might have some wonderful insights and helpful, tips and thoughts for some of us who are going through it. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. I will catch you back here on Thursday. And if you want to see more about me and my work, check out my website at beyondtheveiledtarot.com. I have a new webinar on the Venus retrograde out if you guys want to catch that. We've also got astrology calendars, tote bags, products, as well as personal one-on-one sessions and gift cards. You can find all of that at beyondtheveiledtarot.com. Until next time, I'll catch all of you guys very soon. Take care.